Hello, I'm the real life fake wizard. On June 25th, 2026, PlayStation customers across Europe and the UK got an email from Sony telling them that 551 movies and shows they purchased with real money, are being deleted from their video libraries on September 1st of 2026. That includes Terminator 2, Total Recall, Rambo, Paddington 1, Paddington 2, no refunds, no credits, nothing. And Sony ended that email, as they do with all their marketing emails, with their slogan, "Play has no limits." 6 days later, on July 1st, Sony announced that starting January of 2028, every new PlayStation game will be digital only. No more discs, ever. So today I want to show you exactly what you own when you press that purchase button on the PlayStation Store. What do you truly get for being a member of the PlayStation gaming apparatus? Spoilers, the answer is nothing. You get nothing. It's time to abandon PlayStation. You know, you don't have to imagine what an all-digital PlayStation future looks like, because we're already living it. The email went out in late June. Sony's licensing deal with Studio Canal, the French studio that distributes a mountain of classic films, expired. And when the deal expired, so did your purchases. 551 titles. They're deleting Paddington from people's libraries, and right there, that's it for me. Sony is irredeemable now. Why? Because the Paddington trilogy is seconded only by the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Sony's wording, and I'm quoting the real notification here, is you will no longer be able to access your previously purchased content from Studio Canal, and it will be removed from your video library due to, quote, our content licensing agreements. That's the whole explanation. Your money is not mentioned. Refunds are not mentioned. The email tells you that you have until September 1st, 2026 to watch everything you bought, and then it signs off with "Play has no limits." Now, a little scope here, because precision matters, right? This deletion hits Europe and the UK. American libraries are safe, for now. And technically, the licensing failure is between Sony and Studio Canal. Sony lost the right to distribute digital licenses, so Sony's pulling the content. But before anybody runs to the comments to defend the poor multinational conglomerate, understand this is not a one-time accident. Sony pulled Studio Canal films from German and Austrian customers back in 2022 with the same reason. In 2023, Sony announced it had stripped purchased Discovery content from libraries and only reversed it after the backlash got loud enough that they went and signed a new licensing deal. Third incident here in 4 years, if we're counting. So now, we have a history that when the going gets tough, Sony cuts ties and you lose your purchases. Not rentals, purchases. And that brings us to the main event. On July 1st, 2026, Sony posted on the PlayStation blog that physical disc production for all new games ends in January of 28. After that, new games exist on the PlayStation Store and as digital codes at the retail level. That's it. And the justification in Sony's own words is this reflects shifting trends in consumer preference. Because look at the calendar sitting around that phrase. June 25th, 2026. Rockstar opens pre-orders for Grand Theft Auto 6, the most anticipated game in the history of the medium, launching November 19th of the same year. It is digital only. The physical edition, quote-unquote physical here, is a code in a box with no game in it. July 1st, 2026, 6 days later, Sony announces the end of all physical media, effective January of 28. Now let's count forward, right? GTA 6 launches November 19th. Analysts expect it to be the biggest entertainment launch of all time in any medium, and it's digital only. and Sony's disc cutoff lands about 14 months after that. So, follow the strategy here. You announce this closure inside of GTA's hype shadow, so the outrage splits between you and Rockstar. Then GTA launches and prints a historic amount of money with 0 discs. And then, when January 2028 arrives and people complain, you point backwards and say, hey, the biggest launch ever was GTA. You see that over there? See? Nobody wants discs, do they? The proof arrives on schedule because you scheduled it. And I could already hear some of the knuckle draggers typing away in the comments, Wizard, that is all a coincidence. Sure. Let's count these coincidences. Well, the deletion emails, the GTA pre-orders, and the disc announcement all landed inside of 1 week. The cutoff lands 1 year after the digital-only mega launch. And the employees at Sony's own disc factory found out that their plant was converting on July 1st this year. The same day you did, even though Austrian broadcaster ORF Salzburg reported the conversion had been planned for a long time. Oh yes, that's right. One of the plants responsible for producing hundreds of thousands of discs that go toward PlayStation 5 games is already being reassigned to produce something else. At some point, a pile of coincidences is called a plan, which brings me to the consumer preference itself that Sony says. Sony's favorite stat is that digital software sales are roughly 80% of its game sales. That number is technically true and completely misleading. Circana, the industry sales tracker, reports that 82% of PlayStation 5 consoles sold in the United States were the versions with a disk drive. When Insomniac Games got hacked in December of 2023 and Sony's internal documents leaked because of it, those documents showed that 31 of 33 major first-party releases sold the majority of their copies on disc. Uncharted 4 was 83% physical. Ghosts of Tsushima sold 51% physical. Demon's Souls, 70%. Spider-Man, 66%. God of War Ragnarok, 76% physical. Miles Morales, 66%. Which furthers, well, wait a minute. Sony keeps telling us that their digital software outperforms physical software sales, but for all of Sony's first-party titles, the physical edition sells more, or at least they have. Sure, when you look at the size and scope of what's available on the digital store, what with all the games, the microtransactions, and the DLC, it makes sense because there's just so much more available, and yet we still see a large percentage of game sales as physical edition. That means physical game buyers are still there. Physical games are very much still a viable part of the gaming marketplace. But look at how that trend got made. Sony shipped a cheaper digital-only PlayStation 5 and called it your choice. Sony sold the PlayStation 5 Pro, a $700 console with no disc drive in the box at all. The disc drive is a $79 accessory that spends long stretches out of stock. Retail bundles quietly swapped discs for download codes. We see this with expensive collector's editions now too. You make physical inconvenient, expensive, and scarce for 5 years, and then gesture at the digital sales chart and call it preference. They're claiming that they're listening to their customers. That's a lie. Customers have been herded into a corner and didn't think to ask more questions. They just went along with it. This is, and I'm being serious here, as much gamers' fault as it is Sony's. Oh, and the exits are being demolished on the same schedule. In July 2027, 6 months before the disc cutoff, Sony is closing the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita digital storefronts. So the digital past gets deleted, the physical future gets cancelled, and the factories get retooled. The plant in Austria, Sony's last disc facility as far as I can tell, the one currently pressing 600,000 discs a day, is getting a $34 million conversion to make optical micro lenses for car sensors, with disc output dropping to 10% by 2028. They are actively pouring concrete over the old business model. Sony, all within a week here, has demonstrated what a license is worth. It's worth nothing, by the way. And then they made licenses the only real product they have. Play has no limits, right? So what do you own? Well, let's read Sony's paperwork about it. From the PlayStation Terms of Service, when you buy from the PlayStation Store, quote, you buy a personal license to use that product for private, non-commercial use. You do not own the product. Now, I'm no lawyer, I'm just a fake wizard, but that seems pretty cut and dry. Every game in your library is a permission slip to access that game until you no longer can because of one or many reasons that may or may not be in your control. And the machinery for managing those permission slips is getting more sophisticated. In March 2026, a PlayStation firmware update changed how digital purchases work. New purchases now come with a temporary 30-day license that converts to a permanent one after a one-time online check. Sony ponies paraded around that this isn't a big deal, it's not a big problem, and that everyone is on the internet, so it doesn't matter. But it does. Here you go, take a look at this. I installed 007 First Light at home via a preload before the game released. Mind you, that means I bought the game. And then I traveled, went to a place that had terrible internet and I couldn't connect to the internet. Well, here we go. I could not access my $70 purchase because I couldn't perform this one-time DRM check. Isn't this great? Oh, it's just one thing. It's just one check. It's just one price increase. It's just one. And that's the process. That's the cycle. And yet, Sony built a system where your license is born temporary and becomes permanent when Sony's servers say so. They shipped it silently. Got caught by the internet, they explained it to nobody, players found out by pulling batteries out of their consoles and testing what died, and Sony only issued a statement in late April after a week of panic. And that statement was far from insightful. And how does any of this benefit gamers? It doesn't. It's just more padding in the machine to separate you from your purchases, despite the price of those purchases continuing to climb. You're spending more and more, but own less and less per year. And to be clear, this was only discovered because the internet is so pissed off at Sony that the internet is doing what it does best, which is digging for skeletons. Sony's European terms let them close an account that sits dormant for 3 years, and they keep your unused wallet funds when they do it. Now, turns out this has been a policy for nearly a decade, but think about what a dormancy clause means after January 2028. Your account is your library. Every game you buy for the rest of your life lives behind that login. A clause about closing dormant accounts used to mean losing a username. Now it means the fine print has a mechanism by which your entire collection has a shelf life. Play has no limits, right? Now, the big why. Why is this happening? And this is the part where I put on the marketing hat because I spent a decade inside corporations like this one. None of this is mysterious. Firstly, understand that Sony is not a company scrambling to survive. Sony's gaming division is posting record profits. The PlayStation 5 has sold over 90 million consoles. This is a market leader at the summit with its main competitor Xbox in open retreat. The disc decision is not a cost-cutting measure by a desperate company at all. No, the prize is everything else. When discs die, the used game market dies with them. GameStop's shelf of $20 copies is gone. Lending a game to your friend is gone. Buying a game, finishing it, and selling it to fund the next one? Gone. Retail price competition? Gone. When Walmart and Amazon and Best Buy can undercut each other on a disc, prices fall. And when the PlayStation Store is the only store, Sony sets the price and the discount calendar for every game forever. And Sony collects its platform cut on 100% of transactions instead of just most of them. Every one of those changes moves pennies per sale. Multiply pennies by a couple 100 million customers a year across a decade, and you have the reason 551 movies and every future PlayStation game got sacrificed. Margin. A percent here, a percent there, until they own the whole damn pie. Sony is as monopolistic and anti-consumer as it gets. Now, digital sales is how most people buy games now. Sure, okay. Let's take that at face value. And pressing discs for a shrinking market costs real money. Okay. But the trend explains the direction, not the conduct. And nothing about declining disc sales required deleting paid libraries with no refunds. Nothing required closing the PlayStation 3 and Vita stores. Nothing required closing accounts after 3 years. Nothing required adding a DRM check to complicate installation. When Nintendo is doing its own thing and Xbox is bleeding out, you're not competing for anybody anymore. And when you're not competing, you don't really care. Every detail of that 1 week in June is a company that believes they can convince you you have nowhere else to go. So where does this leave you and me? Well, with a deadline, mostly. Every physical PlayStation game that will ever exist gets pressed between now and January 2028. What's on shelves after that is complete, final, forever. If owning your games matters to you, the window to act like it is open for about 18 months. Buy the discs that matter to you. If you've got a physical edition or a PlayStation Pro, the $79 drive is the key to your whole physical library, and Sony has said nothing about how long they'll keep making that add-on, despite stock issues being a major concern. Think about what a PlayStation is after January 2028. It's a machine with a Ryzen processor and a Radeon GPU that downloads games from a store. Kind of like a PC, right? That is the exact description of a PC. Sony spent a decade turning the console into a PC with one store, and then they killed the last thing that made it different, which was the disk drive. So if everything is a PC console now, everything is just a PC, and if you're gonna live under the PC model anyway, you might as well get the version that comes with a little more freedom. On PC, nobody can close your storefront because there are many of them, and they have to fight each other for your money. That competition is a whole lot of difference. Steam is not a perfect company, and let's be precise here, Steam sells you licenses too. But Valve has spent 20 years not doing the things that this video has been about. Your 2004 Half-Life 2 purchase still downloads today. And in my library, I still have Transformers War for Cybertron, which has been delisted for many, many years. The delisting of games when licenses end doesn't necessarily roll over into Steam. Games go 75, 80, 90% off because stores on PC actually compete. And if the Studio Canal thing is what's keeping you up at night, if ownership is an issue for you, it is for me, I'm not discrediting that, then GOG is an answer. Every game on GOG is DRM free. You download the installer, you put it on a hard drive, and it's yours. The way a disc used to be yours. GOG could lose every license it has tomorrow, and your copy will still run. And there is a very serious window here. If you're thinking about building or buying or upgrading, I would not wait, because PC prices are never coming down. AI data centers are eating the world's supply of memory and graphic chips and computer parts, and every month you wait, that box costs more. The machine you could afford today is the cheapest it ever will be. Unfortunately, that means you gotta get in now, or you're gonna be paying the AI tax later. You're paying the AI tax now. Or, and I say this with complete sincerity, pick up bird watching. Binoculars are a one-time purchase. Nobody deletes cardinals. There are worse responses to all of this than choosing a hobby that isn't run by people trying to reach into your pocket every fiscal quarter. Because that's the honest state of things. At the platform level, gaming is not about art anymore. It is about extraction. There is still a tremendous amount of fun in this hobby to be had. There are still people making incredible games. But finding those games and positioning yourself to play them without getting bled dry, well, that's work now. Companies like Sony, and yes, like Nintendo, I would say Xbox too, but they're too busy eating crayons in the corner for chess, keep sliding their pawns one square closer, one price hike more, one deleted library, one closed storefront at a time, each moving small enough that nobody flips the board over that one move. But you can only extract so much value from the people playing at the table before the board gets flipped over anyway. And when it does, nobody gets to play. Not them, not us. we all lose. So, take your seat at a different table while there still is one. Play has no limits, but on PlayStation, your library does. Until next time, my friends, create, innovate, inspire, and really, cancel your Disney Plus subscription. And also PlayStation. This company sucks. Bye-bye!